Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the Sim Shack, and of course welcome back to me, 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐿. I hope you're well. This is the ET22 SimRail locomotive, and this is an absolutely fantastic locomotive. It's so powerful, it's unbelievable. It can haul 3,000 tons up a hill and accelerate at the same time. It may look a little bit like a bus if you've not been in this train before, but I'm going to go through not only how to start this train up from completely cold and dark, but also try and give you some tips and tricks that I have learned over the last few hours and days that I've been playing it. We're in a scenario mode at the moment. I'm not really going to focus on the scenario, but I'm going, as best I can, going to try and teach you and convey all of the information that I have learnt in the last few weeks and hours. Partly it's for you, partly it's for me, because I don't want to forget, and if I ever do forget, I know there's this tutorial to remind me. Right, so let's jump up. First things first, if you have the cargo DLC pack, and I think this is only those of you with the cargo DLC pack, you'll have access to the engine room and a whole bunch of levers down here which we'll be using today in order to get things running. There's a bit of a corridor down there that leads to cabin B, or the other end of the locomotive, and there's a couple of orange doors, one here and one at the other end, but they're inaccessible at the moment. I believe that's where the electric batteries are stored, so we don't need to sort of mess about in there, I guess. On the outside of this electrics box we have a compressor button, so if you're ever wondering where that is, it's there. And let's open this up and set ourselves up from absolutely cold and dark. So passive driven mode is off. We want to choose compressors 1 and 2 and converters 1 and 2, and then we'll switch converter 1 on and battery 1 on. Cover your ears, by the way, this is going to be loud. We'll close the doors, go back into the front. So let's get rid of that horrible noise first. You can change the direction control to forward or backwards, it doesn't matter which. Then you can hit the vigilance button and turn that off. You can see we've got 2 lights here. Let's activate the cabin before we do anything else. So stage 1 is to turn the batteries on, get the converters up and running, and then come in here and clear all buttons. So this light references the unlock overload relay of converters and heating. So we'll turn that off, and this light relates to unlock traction motors overload relay. So we've done that on both of those 2 things. That's it for stage 1. We're now going to go into the back of the engine room here and come over to these levers, and we're going to close the pantograph compressor, and down the bottom we're going to close the main tank supply. Okay, so we come back in to the electric box on the other side. It is, by the way, possible to move those from this side. Not quite as easy, but it is possible. See, that bottom one down there is a little bit tricky to get to, but I think you can do it if you just get the right angle. So there's an option there if you want to do that. Right, so this button that I mentioned at the beginning is the compressor button. This takes about 60 seconds to 90 seconds. Basically press and hold it until the noise changes or stops. Takes a little while. So this is effectively filling up all the tanks with air, compressed air, and we'll use that compressed air in order to raise the pantograph and start the train. Once the train is started, of course, it can manage this itself, but from a cold and dark start, we have to do it. Does take a while. There's no rushing it. we go. That's it. That's the full process. Right, so now we can come back into the main thing, and now it's all about switching stuff on. So we'll come down here to where it says lower both pentagraphs, and we'll turn that off. That allows us to control both pentagraphs. So we can raise the back, we can raise the front, and you can hear the noise as it's doing it. We'll turn the main switch on, and we'll hit the close main switch button. That gives us the blue light here. We can turn on the compressor and the converter. That's all we need to do pretty much here. We'll get an amperage increase on this, and over here you'll see that the main tank starts filling up with air. It will get round about that red marker, then we can move on to the next stage. But whilst we're waiting for that, we can always turn on the radio. Basically 0 is off, 1 is on, and then we flick this switch here, and then we turn the radio on here, and we can convey that we're ready to the dispatcher by pressing ZEW3 once we've got everything set up. So we're about 0.5% pressure at the moment. It's a bit of a timely process this, but not too bad. Okay, so when we reach that red marker, that's the point where we can head back into the engine room area, turn the pentagraph compressor, open them back up. The little light switch here turns the light on in case you ever come in here when it's dark. Actually, that reminds me, I need to find the light switch in here. I need to turn these lights on up the top. Speaking of which, if we're doing some shunting work, apparently we only have to have the front right headlight on, but because we're doing a proper up and down system, going down the tracks and whatnot, we have to have all 3 lights on. And you'll see AI trains will have all 3 of their lights on. So over here somewhere, I think there is a light switch. I forget which one it is. That's the dimming for the cab light. Overall lighting, or maybe it's that one. There we go. Not that one at all. Okay, good. So we are pretty much ready to go, actually. So if I sit down in the main seat, you can see that we've got voltage here from the pantographs. We've got ampage here and voltage here coming from the engine, one assumes. At the moment, the front brake is fully on, the service brake. So let's pull this back to running and then press and hold the brake releaser, and you'll see that the second pressure bar there, just going up to 0.2, that needs to go up past the red bar, or the red line. I've seen it go as high as 0.6. See, that's releasing all the brakes. Compressor's kicking in and replacing all that compressed air. And you'll notice that we just had a little blue light come on the dashboard. Okay, I don't think that's going to go much higher than that, and that's fine. So let's pull the local brake back to 100%. That will allow us to release the manual brake. At which point we are officially ready to go. So let's let the chaps know.
𝐘𝐻 train 423042 ready at the entry semaphore T after locomotive repair.
423042, 𝐘𝐻 understood. Providing semaphore.
Received.
It's quite impressive that they've got Michael Caine to do the voiceover. I like that very much. So we're looking here at the signal and waiting for that to change so that we can move. And that gives me just enough time to tell you about the steering wheel system here. So we've got the directional controller underneath, and we've got the shunt regulator here, and this circular thing is the power controller. Now we move it to the right to increase power and to the left to reduce power, but it's very important that you put it in 0.1 in order to activate the power controller. If you don't do that, then you'll get no power. It will cut out. Equally, this ampage meter here has a top limit of 600. If you put too much power in too quickly, this will exceed 600 and you'll lose power. And I'll do that in a moment just to show you what happens. So let's release the local brake. You see the pressure's coming down there, the brake is coming off. AI train there. And away we go. So you've got these markers here, do you see them? The little squiggly lines. One is at 21. There's another one at, I think, 36 or 37. And then the last one is 48, the maximum speed. When you have the power controller in any one of these settings, it will give you access to the shunt regulator. You can't move the shunt regulator unless it's in one of those settings. So let's just spin this round to 21. Do that by clicking on it and moving the controller to the right. So we're at 21. Do you see the ampage meter here? It will bump up as you do it. So if I now grab the shunt regulator and pull it towards me, you can see that the ampage is going up again. Do you see how it's going up? It's at 400 at the moment. It's not going to exceed 600. Now, whilst the shunt regulator is on, you cannot move the steering wheel. It's locked. So the only way to reduce power is to turn the shunt regulator off and then move the wheel back to the left, back down to 0. And you'll see that the blue light comes on again. So if you want to now put the power back on, you must always go into state 1. The blue light will go off, and then that will give you access to it. And you can see that the ampage is jumping up. That's how you know you've got power. You'll get ampage here and ampage here. So I'm not really paying much attention to what's going on outside. We'll get to that later. If you want to turn the wiper on, it's that switch there. And then you've got a wiper speed adjuster. So you can turn it down and slow it down and just make it exactly how you want it. Okay, so what happens then if you exceed the 600 limit? Well, let's try and do that. I'm going to turn these up and 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 up. Boom. We've hit 600 ampage. The safety mechanism has kicked in and we've got two lights now. We've got this red one and the blue one. So nothing will work. If you put it back into state 1, nothing will work. What you have to do is unlock the traction motor's overload relay, then put it back into stage 1, and then you're able to start driving again. See, the ampage is coming up. If I bring the shunt regulator down, you can see that we're now powering the train. It's working as intended. So there's a few things to note here. Now I'm sort of filling in some gaps myself. How do I explain how this thing works? The power controller and the shunt regulator, the best way I can think of explaining it is on a mountain bike or a racing bike, you have the cog at the front and you have the cogs at the rear. Now, the front ones will sort of allow you to jump from 1 to 8 to not, and then you go up a cog and then it becomes 9 to 17 or whatever the configurations are, I forget now. So that's basically how I see it. So you've got your rear cog, your rear spindle, which is this one that goes all the way up to 48. And you can see the ampage is still quite low, and because I'm in 36, it's gone green, which means I now have access to the shunt regulator. Now look how this jumps up really quite quickly. So this, using the shunt regulator, is like the front cog on your bicycle going up 10 gears at a time. And you can see our speed is increasing astronomically. Now, if I come out of shunt regulator and I try and spin this right up to maximum without overloading the system, don't worry about speeding and such. Like I say, I'm not really paying attention to the mission at all. So we're up to 48. Now watch this. If I start slamming this up, I think, see how close I am to 600. So I'm getting that alert to tell me that I'm very close to exceeding 600 amps. So that's the noise you'll get. But there's another noise which is quite similar to that. It's a bit more difficult to get hold of. You can see we're just exceeding 75 kilometers per hour now. We're speeding loads. We're absolutely flying. Okay, looks like we got a bit more distance before we get a SPAD, so I can carry on talking. So sometimes when it's wet like this and you're trying to go up a hill or an incline, you could put too much speed on it too quickly, and what you'll notice is that this will start bouncing and the ampage here will start bouncing as well. That is a very good indication, I believe, of wheel slippage. Now, it doesn't confirm that in the game in any way, shape or form that I'm aware of. This is like a process of elimination that I've come to. So I believe that that is what is happening. So we are at this point in power control of 48, shunt regulator 6. This is maximum power for this locomotive. And you can see we are going pretty fast. 85 kilometers an hour. I think the fastest I've ever got out of this is 100. Maybe 105 was the fastest I've ever gone. But that's absolutely fine. Obviously, I'm just using this as an example. So say you want to slow down. Remember, if you've got your shunt regulator on, you cannot reduce the power. So you must always reduce the shunt regulator to 0 and then bring the power down. Now 21 is considered to be long distance gentle rollings. It's like a conservative power setting. So leaving it on 21 is probably enough to get you from A to B to C without too much problem. So as long as you can get it to this point, you're absolutely fine. But you can increase it as quick as you like. It doesn't really matter as long as you're paying attention to the ampage. And as long as that ampage doesn't go up above 600, you can just keep cranking it up. Right, so we're coming to a station, we want to slow down. So we return it back to 0 and we put an initial brake on. That's not going to slow us down very much. If I take a look at the speed over here, you can see we're doing 100 kilometers an hour. It is coming down, but very slowly. It's a very gradual reduction in speed. So if you want to slow down a little bit quicker, let's say we want to stop for this, we may not be able to stop in time. We'll have put a full service on. Now a full service is like a proper hard brake, but not quite an emergency brake. But you can see the speed is coming down quite quickly now. So we can go back to initial. If we're happy that we've slowed it down enough, you're going to have to sort of work that out yourself. The faster you're going, obviously, the more brake you're going to need in order to slow it down. But you should be able to slow down pretty quickly. Once you get to 40 kilometers an hour, I find that the initial brake is perfectly suitable for slowing you down in a timely fashion. And there you can see, before we'd even really stopped, that was already in place. Now, I'm hoping we might be able to... Am I rolling back here? No. Okay. But we're on a bit of an incline, and it's wet and it's slippy. So I'm going to try real hard to get a bit of wheel spin. So we go to power 1, the blue light goes out. I overloaded it too much. So you remember how to reset it? Back to power 1. Let's try 9. 9 is too much. Okay. Let's try 8. Or 7. So you can see the ampage is there. I'm not sure. It's such a good train. There is no wheel slippage at all. It's just instantly gripped and away we go. I think this train has auto sanding. I only think that because I looked desperately for a sander button and I couldn't find one. So I think it automatically does that. Alright, let's try putting it up a couple more notches. You see how I'm always watching the ampage, whilst of course looking outside and trying to ensure. Alright, there was a channel change there that I missed, so I wasn't really looking outside at all.
𝐶𝐶 Południowy, report to 423042, confirming radio communication test after channel change.
So that's your radio channel there. R5.
Radio check successful.
So when you see an R number, that means you've got to change to the radio. This is a speedo, so that's 60 kilometers an hour. That means it starts here. So we're no longer violating speed because we're not doing 60 kilometers an hour. And when you see an inverted V, that's now a 30 mile an hour limit right there. So we should start getting told off. Take my speedo information as a pinch of salt at this moment in time. It's still a work in progress in my head. There's a few more signs I'll tell you about. There you go. We're now violating the 30 kilometers an hour. So if I just bring the initial brake on there, bring this back down to 0. So let's give it a blip of full service, back into initial, and then back into running. We're doing 30 kilometers now. Power back on. Little bit of ampage just to keep the thing going. So we're in 21, that means we have access to the shunt regulator. And this is just like an easier way of just getting the speed up, I suppose. Right, what else can I tell you? So the vigilance button, these are the indicators here. I don't know the difference between the two, but it's the same button. Sometimes you'll get this one, sometimes you'll get this one. On odd occasions you'll get both, and you may need to press the vigilance button twice, just be aware of that. So I'm still working out these signs and such, but there are a couple I can definitely tell you about. We'll just have to be patient and wait until we get to one. So this here is a speed limit. So the 7 indicates that we can do 70 kilometers an hour is the next speedo, which is what it says here as well. Now these double triangles, thanks to my community I now know, are warning signs. So we would press the high tone. You don't have to do it like that, you can just press it once. But that's when and where you press those. This is where the 70 mile an hour limit comes in, so we can turn the shunt regulator off and we can really boost the power up a little bit. See if I can get to the next speed band. There we go, 36. Now just watch the shunt regulator because it does jump up the ampage pretty quickly. And there's also a known bug when you're coming around crossings. Sometimes the crossings are open and it tells you to do 20 kilometers an hour. It's a bit of a pain because you could be doing 70 or 100 kilometers an hour and suddenly it will expect you to drop down to 20 kilometers an hour, but only for 20 feet, and then you've got to go back to 70 or 100. So it's a bit silly, it's a bit of an annoying bug, but there we go. You can see we got double triangles coming up again. Just to reiterate, it'll be the horn. We're trying to deliberate whether it's before, after, or just as you go past. And what we've decided is, we don't know. So we just do it at the same time as you go past it. A little bit before maybe, and a little bit after maybe. That kind of covers you in most cases. Right, so we're flying along quite nicely. Everything seems to be working as intended. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should tell you. I think I have everything covered. There is a second forward motion here, so if I bring the shunt regulator down to absolutely 0 and then put the direction control, if I can get a hold of it, into forward 2. Now we believe, I missed it there, got to go into number 1 to get that blue light out. But we believe maybe it's a more sporty version. By the way, when the alerter goes off, you can just press the space bar. You don't have to press the vigilance button if you were wondering why I've not pressed it a single time yet. It's because I'm pressing the space bar instead. So yeah, we believe that forward 1 is maybe more cost effective, uses less power. Forward 2 is a bit more sporty and can potentially push you up into the 110, 120 area. So we just saw there the orange sign. 30 mile an hour limit. So let's just get the train back down to 30. So I'll just go over the speed limit thing one more time in an attempt to be a little clearer. I think I gave it a bit too much brake there. Right, so if the train does stop in the situation it has now, the same thing applies. That blue light there, put it into 1. As soon as you have that, then you have the ampage. If you go over 600, you reset it back to 1, light goes out. I think 7 is a safe bet. 8 is pushing the limits a little bit. But we should be able to move any second now. There you go. We're just getting some grip. Again, it's very rare that you get to see the wheels spin, but it has happened to me on occasions, normally when going up a hill in the wet with 3,000 tons behind me. So let me go past the old speedos one more time. Ah, I just clipped. I just clipped 600. Stage 1. Up to 7. 7 is a safe bet usually. I could do a little bit more because we're already moving. See how close that is to 600 amps. Alright, so let me clarify again the speedo situation. As I understand it, I may change this in time as I learn more. So we can put a shunt regulator 1, maybe 2 on, maybe even 3. 3 is very close to 600 amps. So I'm pushing the limits there, but I am pulling a lot of weight while still accelerating. So, and you may have noticed that we started off 9 minutes behind and now we're only 5 minutes behind. So it is possible to catch up on the time if you're ever out. Right, so this white square is not a speed sign. I think that's just for the engineers so they know which pylon they're at. We'll keep pressing forward until I see the speedo again. So, an inverted V means the end of a speed limit. So if you see in there is a 3, so this is the end of the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit right here. Now whether or not it's the front of the train or the back of the train that's relevant to, I don't know. This indicates new speed limit starting here, and the new speed limit is 70. Now unfortunately I didn't see the 70, so I couldn't call it out to you, but there'll be another one along fairly shortly, I'm sure. So we're at power band level 1 and the shunter is active. Actually, I've just noticed there's an additional one at the beginning there. I may try this in a second. I may have just learned something myself. But I just want to get this speedo thing sorted out. These ones up in the top right hand corner are a bit unreliable. I wouldn't rely on them too much. I'm going to turn them off myself and revert back to doing it manually. So I'm hoping along here somewhere a little speedo will turn up. And then we'll test that one last thing before I go. Quite a long tutorial now, isn't it? 19 minutes long. Apologies for that. Hopefully you're not too bored at this point. I'm trying to cram as much information in here as I can. There's still a few signs and things I don't understand. Some of the signals I don't understand yet. That's another thing I've got to work on. Do you see over here? On that line, you need to switch to radio 4, or radio channel 4, I should say. It doesn't apply to us, so we'll just keep on channel 5. Fantastic television channel in the UK, in case you don't know what channel 5 is. Some of the best telly on telly. Again, just hitting the alerter. Well, I was hoping there was going to be a speedo here. We are going uphill quite a bit, so what I might do instead is the other thing, the thing I just discovered. So let's go full service. See, the brake kicks on round about 0.2. I come out of full service and back into initial. The brakes are still on, still slowing the train down. And of course we're going up a bit of a hill, so it's helping that a little bit more, but it's very gradual when it's on initial. But this is your brake bar here. Right. So two things I want to try and do here. I want to try and get wheel spin, but I also want to try and start out with the shunt regulator a little earlier. So I'm going to go back to running. I'm going to put this in power 1. Okay. I thought maybe that bottom one would allow us to use the shunt regulator whilst in power control value 1, but that's not the case. Alright, so let's go. 6 is safe, 7 is a bit risky, 8 is pretty much maxed out, but you just keep edging it up, watching the ampage. I tend to say if it drops below 400, you're ready for the next one. And you can even go up a couple if you're feeling brave. It's basically something you'll get used to over time. So the ampage is pretty good. I'm going to try and do a wheel spin now. Didn't happen. Let's go. Nearly happened there. Went too high. Right, so I can slam this up to, let's say 25. So I'm going to go from 1 right up to 25. And it didn't exceed the ampage because I know we're already moving and we're already capable of doing that. I think I did it again, didn't I? Just exceeded 600. But at least you've seen me do it quite a few times now. Compressor just kicked in there. There's a few signs here I don't yet understand. So there's a sign there for 2, but it's a triangular sign, so it doesn't mean speedo. For a second there I thought it did. Right, I'm not sure if we're going to see a speed sign. I'm kind of just driving a train now for the sake of driving it. So once again, what's this sign here? The double triangles with the little vehicle in. It basically, I think it's indicating that there's a crossing coming. So when you get here, you got to hit the old horn. You got to hit the old emergency thing. It's a funny old horn. Right, we'll carry on for just another couple of minutes and see if I can't see the speedo thing. So a square 1 indicates what the next speed limit is going to be. An upwards V indicates that that is the starting point of that speed limit. So this inverted V here is telling us that the 20 mile an hour limit stops here. Actually, no. The upright one... Oh, hang on. There's another alert there for some reason. So the upright one is the finish and the downright one is the start. So there is actually a 20 km an hour speed limit there, which is crazy. So maybe that's not a bug. As you can see, I'm not 100% perfect at this. I've only been playing this game for 8 hours, 12 hours, something like that. So I'm still pretty new to it, but this is just what I've learned so far. So this is why we sounded the horn a second time, because there's a second crossing. But that one doesn't have a 20 kilometer speed limit on it, so I'm a bit confused by that. Let's just see what this sign says. This should be a speed sign here. If it says 5, it's 50. If it says 3, it's 30. If it says 10, it's 110. That's my understanding. See that one there's 10, which means it's a 100 kilometer mile an hour limit over there, and you need to switch to radio 3. In fact, we need to switch to channel 3 and call in as well.
Rota 42 30 42, radio test after switching to channel 3.
42 30 42, loud and clear at Dorota.
Received.
So I think we'll end on Michael Caine there, because he's an absolute legend and I'm not. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comment section if you've got any correction or advice or recommendation for me. I'm still learning, but hopefully this tutorial was useful for you. and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care. Goodbye for now. Goodbye for now. Goodbye for now.